All right, we're gonna go live. What's up, Brian? HR, Brian 2, Brian Rodman, No Set Path, Analog Assailant. Thanks you guys for coming in here. I'm Joe from Voltage Control Lab, also known as Computo. You can find Voltage Control Lab on Instagram at Voltage Control Lab. Down there, it's running our social links and such. So if you guys get a chance, go check those out. Just trying to make sure that we're not getting any weird feedback. Haven't done this for a minute. Uh, forgive any wonkiness, but today we're going to get into a little bit of an exploration with the DNI Pro modular dot. And this kind of is, to my mind, a little bit reminiscent of the early Euclidean rhythm generator module that Tom Whitwell designed. It's got a little bit of the reminiscent characteristics of that, especially the sequencer graphic interface up there at the top, where we can see uh, our patterns as they grow, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Um, so yeah, we're also going to have a video hopefully out this week on Hemisphere Suite, and the plan is to do a series of videos on the Hemisphere Suite, one video hopefully each week on the different modes, one mode or so, maybe two modes. We'll see how they interact with each other and how they add up. Um, uh, on the Ornament and Crime Hemisphere Suite. So, if you have any favorite Hemisphere Suite modes, let us know. We'll maybe try to prioritize those, but I'm going to try to do every single mode in Hemisphere Suite, of which there are like uh, 60 modes, something like that. It should take a while, frankly. But going through each one should be interesting, and I'm not going to say any more than that because the video will hopefully get into some of the cool, uh, deeper functionality of Hemisphere Suite, and that's where the that's where the fun is. So, um, okay. Other news this weekend is the online super booth. There's also Ableton Live Loop online going on. Every day they're apparently having beat making or music composition challenges in the early part of the day for Loop, and then getting into talks and discussions and stuff like that in the evenings. So check those out. This is a saturated weekend for live stream content. So as such, I'm going to try to not go for too long today because there's other stuff that you want to see and I want to see, and yeah, all that stuff. So without further ado, maybe let's get over to the modular system and start having a look at this thing. It does look like the Pittsburgh game system. I kind of loved that module. I was sad to see it go. I think they retired it a while back, but the game system allowed you to play Snake and do all kinds of funky things and use those interactive games as sequence generators. So, um, Pittsburgh Modular game system, very cool device. And yeah, this is kind of reminiscent. Maybe a smaller. I'm very quiet though. You might need to turn up your YouTube. Oh shit, Travis, what's up? Good to see you. Jin, good to see you in here. Dennis, thanks for joining us. One on. Thank you guys so much for coming back in here. Tim Burgess, let me know if the audio level is problematic. I find that if you're listening on a phone or something, the levels might be questionable. Also, you might just want to check your YouTube volume and all that stuff. But give me some feedback if you guys hear some audio weirdness, and I will try to ride the levels as we go. Okay, so we are looking. Okay, sounds good there. Yeah, I think it might be your YouTube, Tim. But anyway, let's get into the dot. Okay, so the dot is a multifunction trigger sequencer, and I just got this sent to me by Konstantin um, Lobanov. If you want to check out his work on SoundCloud or some of his musical work, you can find him as Lobanov K. And he was nice enough to hit me up online and see if I would be interested in checking out the dot. And I'm always interested in Euclidean rhythm generators. So, yeah, what is a Euclidean rhythm? Um, well, if you want a nice in detail review, it is quieter than other streams. Okay, let me try turning it up a little bit. We'll see if that makes a difference. All right, let me know. Working on it. Always trying to improve this situation and not also at the same time blow your eardrums out. So, happy to get the extra feedback. I appreciate it. Okay, so Euclidean rhythms. If you guys want to check out what are Euclidean rhythms, go check out our video on Euclidean rhythms, which we have actually a couple, but we've got one called "What Are Euclidean Rhythms?" and I would check that out. There's surely other references, but Euclidean rhythms were discovered. Discovered. There was a correlation discovered in 2005 by a McGill University particle physicist who also happened to have a penchant for African and world drumming. And in his discovery, in his drumming, he discovered or noticed that there was a similarity in the distribution of beats or hits, let's say, over the course of bars with African rhythms and world rhythms, whereby we have a certain number of beats, a length of a repeating bar, and however many number of beats are interspersed throughout that bar. In world rhythms, and maybe world rhythms isn't really the right term, in rhythms that tend to affect human beings' brains, um, there happens to be an even distribution, or as even of a distribution as we can find, of those beats across the longer beat length, the measure length. And he noticed this because in particle physics, in particle acceleration, they use similar mathematics. They use the Euclidean algorithm to fire off particles through I guess, like a CERN-like particle accelerator. So the long and the short of this is that this was a correlation between some of the oldest rhythms known to man and some of the newest technology and science, uh, uh, only maybe recognizable by someone who had an interest in both particle physics and world rhythms and world drumming. So he wrote a paper on this. You can Google Euclidean rhythms. The fellow's name is, I think, Godfrey Toussaint. Toussaint. He's a Canadian, I believe. And so you can go find his article. It's a very short article, but it illuminates even more about Euclidean rhythms. But we work with three values when we're creating Euclidean rhythms: the length of the overall pattern, which in the dot can be up to 16 steps, the number of beats distributed evenly across that number of that length of a pattern, and the offsetting of that rhythm so that we can start the rhythm in the middle of the pattern rather than always at the very beginning of a pattern. And that gives a way to even more uh, variation, more different regional beat structures from different localities around the world. So we're going to be working with these three elements most likely when we're dealing with Euclidean rhythms. And that is the case with dot. Now, there's also a what they call a Xox, Jacques, I don't know how you pronounce it, XOX. It's the on or off step sequencing method that we find in so many step sequencers. Uh, so we're going to look at these two functions. There's more to dot. We can also modulate the rhythm cycles. We can modulate either any of those three Euclidean elements, the length, the fills, and the offsetting of the beat, on each different channel independently. There's three channels, so three different sequences can run at a time. And so let's take a look at this thing. We need a clock in. Without a clock input, we have no sequence. So we're going to send a clock sequence in there. This is just a steady stepping clock, okay? And we've got the three outputs going to different drum or drum trigger modules. Okay, so we've got channel 1 selected, and we can cycle through by pressing that button the three different Euclidean values that we're going to want to work with. The first one is length. That's in the green mode. Or sorry, that's going to be hits, actually. This one's length. So if the button is red, we get the length of our sequence. And you can see this orange step indicates the end of the sequence. And now this first sequence is ending earlier than our other sequences, and they're now overlapping in terms of their play position. Now, let's extend that back out to 16 for a moment. This is mapped to the Basimilus iteratus, which is doing a hi-hat type of a sound. The panel here is made of aluminum. I believe they have a black panel as well. That might be made of PCB. I can't say, though, because I don't have the black one. But you might check their website to see. So we have, in red, sequence length. In yellow, we have offset. And in green, we have the dialing in of the number of steps. So we use the knob here, whichever channel we have currently selected, to alter that value. So right now, we have a 16-step sequence going. You can see they're all going in line together. And as we turn up the knob, sequence 1, this right-hand sequence, is going to start to populate with notes. If I turn it just once, we get one hit across 16 steps. Turn it one more step, we get 2 hits across 16 steps. As evenly distributed as possible, right? There's going to be, as we approach odd number lengths or odd number of hits, there's going to be potentially an uneven number of steps to fill with those hits. So we're going to have remainders. We're going to have some uneven divisions, but it's going to try to get as close as it can. So here's 2. When we go to 3, and maybe we can turn on there's 4 steps across 16 beat pattern, evenly distributed, gives us a quarter note like pattern. Basket full of puppies, good to see you. Wambra, good to see you. Mr. Fedor, Christian, Wishbone Brewery, send us some beer. Okay, 5 steps. Oops, let's go to 6. And now we might, oops, now I double press something. Let's come over to the offset page, and now we can offset this whole thing. which might sound a little bit more exciting once we get another pattern going. So maybe let's do that. Let's come over to this one. Excuse me. This one can only go 16 steps. The dot does 16-step sequences at most. We could, of course, chain these together through like a sequential switch or something, but excuse me again. Let's set this to do kind of like a quarter note pattern. We get this nice tresillo overlapping on channel 1. Offset this. Get this kind of partito alto rhythm. 8 steps across 16 gives us eighth notes. 9 steps across 16 gives us kind of this, Latin style, Afro-Cuban style sequence. Now I say we only get 16 steps, but keep in mind that once we start sending in some modulation to these CV inputs for these different channels, we can easily manipulate what seems like 16 steps into something that seems a lot more complicated. And then, of course, we can alter the note length. Or, sorry, the pattern length. Let's do some offset. All right, so we have like a 13-step pattern now, overlapping the Of course, if we put it all the way up, then every note will be triggered. It doesn't really matter how long the length is at that point. But you see how we could keep the number of steps limited and then change the length. It redistributes those number of steps across however many steps we've actually, whatever the length is. So if we have 9 steps and we change the length, it's going to redistribute those 9 hits. It starts to get complicated. I don't believe we can chain patterns, but again, once we start modulating one pattern, things are going to start getting a little bit interesting and complicated. So we could do that real quick just to see what happens. We'll send an LFO in here. I'm not even sure what this is set to right now, but okay, set to number of hits. So just sending an LFO in now to the CV input. And you can see that now the number of steps on channel 1 is continuously oscillating back and forth. Of course, we could slow this way down. Could randomize it. We can also change this so that instead of modulating the number of hits, it modulates the length or the offset. So we might have to get into the programming of this thing to make that happen. Doesn't take too much. Okay, just wanted to demonstrate we can do that. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, let's turn off this channel for a minute. Whoops, wrong mode. Okay, there we go. So we can go from 0 to 16 steps per pattern, per channel. We can save the patterns. We'll do that in a minute. The other portion that though that I want to look at here is that we can actually program in steps as well. We can put this into the XOX programming mode. I think we double press it. What do we do? How do we get there? Okay, we press the button, or the knob encoder, and notice that all the lights turn on. One of them is red. The currently active and the currently editable channel is going to show up in red. So as we turn the knob now, we see that there's an orange playhead selector. We can choose one of the steps. And when we push now the knob, it's going to drop a red note in that position, or step in that position. So here we can start to overlap and program sequences with the Euclidean pattern. We could also turn off the Euclidean pattern completely. Those steps remain. So maybe we could come over to our kick drum pattern and maybe create a pattern. So not tied specifically to Euclidean rhythms. We can step sequence by hand, right? We can save these patterns as well. And then I have that step sequence in there. I can also start to dial in the Euclidean rhythm underneath it. So we get a combination of a sequenced pattern and the Euclidean rhythm, which of course we can then modulate that underneath. We start to get this like evolving pattern going, right? It's never going to be quite the same. It might be the same at some point. Depends on the modulation source. We're just sending a rising and falling sine wave, so it's not going to be that chaotic of a pattern change all the time. But you can do a like performed in beat like that. Let's figure out how to do that. Again, like I'm to a certain degree learning this thing with you at the same time as we're going through here. So maybe let's unprogram some of these patterns. And let's take out the modulation for a moment. Oops. Try not to break anything in my studio. Okay, so now we're back to nothing. There's probably a faster way to zero everything out, and I'm just ignorant of it at this point. So this came with this nice little handy manual. I am a big fan of physical manuals, even though this is like a piece of paper, which, is kind of walking us through the different menus and things like that. And there aren't that many menus, and you really don't need to access any of them, frankly, if all you're wanting to do is program and sequence this thing. The menus are for additional functionalities, like setting what the CV inputs do, whether they're modulating the length of the pattern, the number of filled steps in that pattern, or the offset. That's something that you can modulate in the menus. Okay, and then record mode. So this is one of the other modes in the global level controls. So here's record mode. Let's look and see what it says. there are additional tools and settings you can find in two menus, global menu and optional menu. The optional menu gives us access to uh, ratcheting per step, erasing patterns, like fast erasing patterns, um, Euclidean to sequence step conversion. So if you program in a step or you program in a Euclidean pattern, it will turn it into a programmed step pattern. So we can go in and kind of and edit those steps as well. Kind of some extra bells and whistles to what is already a pretty intuitive module. It might take us, figuring out what the button presses do, what the colors do, how this mode is different from this mode. But beyond that, we don't really need these other menus. It's just kind of like added value that we can get into. So if you hate menus, which I know a lot of modular people do, we never really have to look at them. That's one of those things about the ornament and crime that for some people just, turns them off immediately. Oh, there's a one step going. It's like, what is that sound? I thought my cat was doing something in the background. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's think. There's also swing built in to one of those menus. So let's think about that. Let's go into the global mode. Press and hold the encoder for a second to enter global mode. And then we should see, okay, so there's our CV input. There's also a way to flip the functionality of the thing. So if you like your ports at the top, then we can do it that way, and the graphics will appear upside down. I don't know that there's a flipped version of the panel, but whatever. I use my ornament and crime upside down all the time. The utility HP ratio is pretty nice on this. Yeah, and it's a very shallow module. I think it's really well thought out. I saw someone had posted a comment about having some technical problems with it. And I would just say, in general, if you find yourself having technical issues with any module, contact the manufacturer directly. You could contact the store, I suppose, that you got it from, but as with returns and technical support, that usually doesn't come from a store. So, if you have problems with this or other modules, contact the manufacturer. I'm sure they will be willing to work with you and get it working, because nobody wants a funky module out there in the world if it's going to bite into the other business, I suppose. So we have our CV input. This is our CV control menu, where we can choose which of these. Oh, now I went out. We can choose which of these functions. Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. So we can push the button, and you see it's got these 3 levels of colors. And if we choose to push this first button, then we're changing the colors on channel 1. Green is fill, red is pattern length, yellow is offset. So whichever color we see there for each of these channels, when we send CV input to one of to the channel CV input, that is the value that's going to be modulated, offset in this case for channel 1, and length or pattern fills for channels 2 and 3. Okay, great. We go over to the M page. That's muting. This page is initialize track. So this is kind of a erasing of everything that we've done so far. No. Okay, so I guess I push that button. It blinks for a second. Push it again. Let's see. You must confirm erasing with a second press. Okay, so yeah. Just erase everything. Here's the record page. So in this mode, we can do exactly what who is asking? Basket Full of Puppies was asking. Can you record by tapping track buttons? Hold track button to clear. Okay, so let's see. Probably help to have like the clock in our ear. And then this one is some random sound, I think. So as long as you have the clock in your ear, this works works fine. And if we go back out of this, and you can see it's set in the sequences that I've just played, and we can go through them and deselect some of those notes if we don't want all of those notes. We can go back into our edit mode. We could initialize. And then we go back to record. And you know, once we start playing these things in, it might start to feel kind of like the one is moving around. One might not feel like it's up at the top anymore. It might feel like it's something in the middle, depending on where we're playing with the clock. So this is one of those techniques where it might be useful to have, in a sense, the metronome going to our ear so that we can hear this thing. Okay, let's erase this thing again. So long press that that encoder, and we go into our global menu. Let's see, push and hold track button to call up the optional menu, and that's going to have the ratcheting, erase, and swing. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's try going back out here. We'll put in hi-hat pattern. Okay, so this is the optional menu. I just held that button. Okay, so I think this is swing. No. This is erase. So I guess, okay, so we push to erase. Okay, let's put this pattern back in here. Let's long press again, go back to options. We have ratcheting. Oops, gotta figure out how to use this thing. So we can add these double hits. Go back in here. This is our convert Euclidean to Xox pattern. And then it turned it into red notes instead of green notes now. Okay, let's go back out here. Let's go over to swing. I really want to check out the swing. Now what? No swing. Where do we get swing? Press top 2 track buttons simultaneously to enter swing. Ooh, there we go. Okay, and now if I turn this up, hell yeah. Okay, let's turn off the ratcheting. You see, you just mark which steps you want to ratchet. Maybe we'll add in swing is, again, one of those things that we often miss out on it in the modular world. Okay, let's yeah, so especially the quick access to the options menu and stuff. This is something we might have to practice a couple of times, especially if we're intending on using any of that in a live setting. My feeling is we'd want to set that stuff up ahead of time so that we don't have to think about menus and navigating shit when we're performing. That's not helpful. Save up and get a Euclidean Rhythms um, or Euclidean circles. That's fine. Window Licker, I was actually just referencing your comment a little bit ago about maybe going and contacting the manufacturer, because 2 months seems like it would probably still be within uh, the what's the word I'm looking for? The factory expectations. You should be able to maybe get a replacement for that. I think if anything I had broken less than 2 months, I would probably be contacting the manufacturer and getting them to uh, respond in some way. So, as I said earlier, if you ever have modules or gear that breaks down or something, I think the first step is to go and contact the manufacturer, um, and yeah, warranty. And if that doesn't work, maybe you need to contact the store so that they can put a little pressure on the manufacturer. Or we have a large and active community in the modular scene, so I suppose the last ditch resort, the last ditch effort would be to, uh, you know, inquire with the community if that starts to become an issue. But I'll also, I'll say this as somebody who has worked in technical support for um, companies, music tech companies, things like this. It's always a challenge to get in contact with music or to get in contact with technical support. But these times, especially, I think are probably extra difficult. So it might require a little bit of, you know, stick to itiveness on your part. And, but these aren't cheap devices. I wouldn't give up. I would say, uh, make your voice be heard and get the message across to the maker, and good luck. If you have any problems with that, hit me up. Let me know, because I don't think any of us are comfortable with the idea of 2 months with an expensive module and then it breaks and us not being happy with it. And sometimes these things, especially with a module like this, it might simply be a firmware issue, and it's one of those funky things. So, but I would stick to it and don't take no for an answer. Okay. What else? What else are we missing out on here? Let's try taking this out there a little bit. Let's try using some modulation and mess some shit up. Let's get this thing going wild. Okay, so let's maybe program in a beat here. Any questions, by the way? And maybe we'll try to get some weirdness going on in this tonal synth as well. Let's see. I have no idea what's going into this right now, but oh, it's all wanky. Okay, let's try some other source. It would probably help to clock our sequence from the same place that we're getting our other clock from. Euclidean. Oh, that's a great word. That's a great shortening of Euclidean rhythms. Okay, so the question is, can you add the ratcheting in a Euclidean way, or only per step? Can you clear all on just the ratcheting track? Great questions. Okay, let's see. Let's go into... Okay, so here's ratcheting. And I do not believe that there is a Euclidean way to just dial in the ratcheting, but let's see. Let's refer to the text here. Okay, ratcheting. Set ratchets for the desired channel or step. I don't think that there's a way to do that with... That would be a really cool take. I like that idea. Out of that mode. There we go. Oh, look at that. The ratchets are being modulated as well, though. Didn't notice that up until just now. So we can type in some ratchet points. And you can see that certain spots are blinking. This one is not. I think that's because there's probably not notes in the sequence there. Oh no, there is. Okay. Okay, now it's lighting up. Maybe it wasn't there when we were modulating the sequence. Let's try. So you can see the ratcheting sequence gets modulated as well. Interesting. Be interesting to know if it modulates the length of the ratchets as well. Let's see. Yep, modulates the length of the ratchets as well. If we modulate the pattern length here. So no, I think the ratchets have to be typed in. Wait, let's see here. Per step only, says Window Licker. Window Licker has spent some time with this thing. Daisy chain 2, you can have quicker access to oh, interesting. So you can maybe operate the ratchets from the second one in ratchet mode or something like that. Okay. Interesting that we can do this modulation of the ratcheting. I like that. I wish we could clear all the ratchets at a time, like you're mentioning. I don't know that we can do that, though. We probably have to clear the whole pattern, I suppose. Let's see. There is an erase mode. But that's probably going to do the whole pattern. Oh, no, left the pattern. It just cleared the... No, it's still ratcheting. Never mind. Okay, there goes the pattern. Okay, let's switch some of these over to different modulation modes. (7177). Thanks for joining us. We're just about to start modulating a little bit more of this pattern. Let's try the drum pattern. Now sending a step sequence into going a little more. Let's see. Let's take another clock and clock this thing. That'll make it easier. And then let's modulate this middle pattern. It's kind of boring. So I like the idea of putting like one ratchet point in there, like that hi-hat has. What if we did like one of those on this too? Oops. Oh yeah, there it goes. We could also trigger the reset button. Thanks for the kind words, Window Licker, on the ornament and crime tutorials. I was just saying earlier, we're going to be doing, we're going to have a hemisphere suite video, which is the very popular alt firmware for the ornament and crime. We should have that out this week. And then we're going to be doing a video on each of the modes in the ornament and crime hemisphere suite. So that should be, if you like ornament and crime, a whole glut of video content once we get it all out. Okay, let's do some other random reset in here. Good question, HR. Is the ornament and crime and the disting very similar? They are certainly distinctly different devices, though there might be some similarity and crossover in some of the modes. I think, though, disting is maybe more friendly as a tone generator in certain modes. Ornament and crime isn't really designed to be a tone generating tool as much as a modulate anything in any kind of way type of tool. So, you know, you can kind of take that for what it is. I think they're uniquely separate and different, and certainly probably very interesting interacting together, especially with that new disting that they announced yesterday, the disting 4XA or whatever the new name for this thing is. It's like two distings in one. Yeah, so, you know, I think there's a lot of possibility there. This thing also interacts with the computer a bit more, I think, if you wanted to, though ornament and crime can hook up via USB if you want to have a USB kind of running into the back of your case. You can run it that way, and especially with this new, with the Hemisphere suite, there's a MIDI interface mode. There's like a USB MIDI interface mode where we can actually have the ornament and crime act as a go-between USB to USB MIDI to CV interface and back the other way as well. That's one of the more extreme modes in Hemisphere suites. Or suite. So, we'll be doing a discussion of that thing. It's called Captain MIDI, I think. Questionable name, but whatever. I obviously love the ornament and crime. It's one of the devices that I use in almost every patch, though right now it's not in use because there's I've been working on that Hemisphere Suite video. So, but yeah, Window Licker, I think your point is a great one. Once you spend a little bit of time with this type of an interface, and I think the same thing goes with Ornament and Crime, the interface is fairly minimal. There's not too much in-depth button pushing and long pressing of things that you can deal with, to be honest. So once you get your head around it a little bit, it becomes pretty second nature. So Temp Util is the other module that I think preceded the Ornament and Crime, which is especially clock and trigger sequence friendly. Yeah, we're hearing one of these, the tonal channel is plates right now that we're hearing, actually. Plates running through the Warp's Parasite firmware delay and clouds. So keeping it a little bit classic here. And getting some cool stuff out of this. I like the idea of maybe modulating the number of hits on the kick drum, because then you get overlapping every once in a while. It's gonna land on that ratcheted beat. Mute our channels. This is in the global page. That's pretty handy. guess if we erase a channel and we have the fill modulated, it's not going to matter. It's just going to repopulate the channel right as soon as we send a CV signal in there. These are bidirectional CV inputs as well. So, we can daisy chain a second one, keep it in mute mode, and use that. Interesting. Yeah, the daisy chaining seems like it could add a lot of extra functionality. Yeah, so some pretty interesting functionality out of this thing. I find it super useful, and the form factor is hard to complain about. We can see we were modulating the pattern length here on the middle channel. And we can see it's kind of, it's always got 3 steps, but we can see those 3 steps are kind of distributed a little bit differently, depending on the length. Let's see, that's channel 1. You can take it all the way down to 1 step. You know, it depends on the amplitude of the modulation source. If it's going the full plus and minus 5 volts, I think is probably the range, then we're going to get as long a pattern as it can go and as short a pattern as it can go. And yeah, I don't know how many we can chain together before it starts to fall apart, but let's I do not have the muscle memory on this thing yet. So, kind of learning this thing together, trying to figure it out. I think this is one of those funky tools. I've been using the qubit pulsar in my performance rig, which does have another channel, and it does have some other functions in its sequencing, in its step sequencing bag. It can do what are the Pythagorean or no, maybe not Pythagorean. Yeah, I think that's right. Pythagorean rhythms. So the rhythms start pacing out in Pythagorean intervals. Maybe I'm confusing that with tempi right now. But there's a random pattern generator in the qubit pulsar, but it's also pretty big compared to this dot. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll be swapping that out in my performance rig and keeping pulsar safe at home. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what we wanted to look at today. Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? Complaints? Angry rants? All of these things are acceptable, I suppose. So, all right. We're going to be back next week with another live show. I have no idea what it'll be about, but we'll find out next week. If you guys have any suggestions, requests, comments, complaints. Like I said, if there's anything you think that I should be doing better, let me know. Trying to keep this stream riding along, and we're trying to improve it bit by bit every time we do it. So, if you have recommendations, I'm all ears. We're going to try to get some more distracting EURORACK modular animated GIFs going in the near future. So, yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming today. Window Licker, Mr. Basic, HR 7177, Wanan, Analog Assailant, Wambra. I appreciate your breaking from your pool game to hang out with us, Wambra. Wishbone, Wagyu, Jin, Tim, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming in and hanging out with us. And yeah, we're going to keep on going. Watch this week for our hemisphere video. It's almost done. I just need to motivate myself to actually complete it and get it online, and then we'll hopefully see it. Victor, good to see you. Oh, Victor hopped in here. If you guys are wondering where Victor is, he's in the chat room. Yeah, you got it. Thanks, you guys, again for coming in here. We're going to, I think, call it a day. VoltageControlLab.com, at VoltageControlLab on Instagram, at VControlLab on Twitter, and you can find me at Computo on all of those things. And come, check out some music, check out some of our other videos, subscribe, like, all that business, and patch smarter. See you guys next time.